This is But the Years Are Short, the podcast where mamas who are therapists share real advice for real families. I'm Megan.
And I'm Katie. And we want to be your front porch community where you can laugh and learn with us about the beautiful, messy, overwhelming, hilarious work of raising kids.
Because the days are long,
but the years are short.
All right, Katie, welcome. Are you ready for today?
I'm super excited today because we are going to be talking about something really important, which is kind of this concept of staying out until the lights come on, which I think is something as these kids we had the opportunity to do.
Yeah.
And I think kids these days, there's a lot of talk about how kids these days don't as often have the opportunity to do. Because times have kind of changed, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think with the advent of social media and news getting pushed out like in 5 minutes after something happened, we have just more concerned parenting. I don't know. What do you think? What do you see with both like our friends and parents that come in? Do you think it's as common to have kids that are out running the neighborhood all the time?
I don't. It's so funny. I know that I'd say like in my own world, I don't see kiddos out running the neighborhood. And I think with my friends in my community, like it's like a conversation we have of like how do we, whether we are going to get our kids out or whether we're not, and the reasons and all those things. So I do think it's very relevant. I mean, I think it's changed a lot. And so I know that like you and I have talked about of like when we were kids, the idea of like coming when the lights come on is like the idea when the streetlights come on. Like you could play. And like for me, it was like a very specific number of streets. It was like 2 streets that we could, 2 or 3 streets we could play on, and we could roam rampant on those streets. But as soon as the streetlights came on, we had to be going home. And so it was like this, it felt like in one way, like we had the world, right? Like we could explore, we could do all the things. And it wasn't that giant of ation. And my parents knew a bunch of the people in the area, or the kids I was with, their parents knew a bunch of people. So it's like there was this idea from my parents' perspective, like they actually did know where we were more than I thought they knew where we were. But I think that's shifted in so many ways. And so like, Katie, when you think about your kiddos, like how does that play out in your world?
Yeah. So I will say when I was a kid, right, from probably like 8 to 13 were probably the years that I spent the most time outside and kind of running the neighborhood, and had a bunch of friends in. So like the way that our neighborhood was laid out in front of my house, there were like 3 streets kind of across from my street. And so I could run those streets and like bike them and roller skate on them. And then there was a street behind me. And so it was kind of that all within, like probably a half quarter mile, And there were a bunch of kids from my elementary school, and so everybody knew everybody, and so it was like lots of friends, and so it was like, we're going to go see like who can come out and play and who has a trampoline and who's got roller skates and do you remember those moon shoes?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about those in forever. Did you have a pair of those?
I had moon shoes, yeah.
I did not. You were the cool kid. Yeah. We did not have moon shoes at our house.
Listen, you couldn't go very far with the moon shoes. It was like you could stay in your own driveway, but then like they'd snap if you got too aggressive with them.
Got too excited. There's only a certain level of excitement they allow.
Yes, correct. Otherwise, you might injure yourself. So, but then there was like a creek right within that little vicinity. And so you could like get down in a creek and play with the frogs and the turtles and save them from whatever trash had blown into the creek,
Yes.
So it's like lots of adventures and things. So I think my kids, as they have gotten older, they're like what they're allowed, like the space that they're allowed to kind of explore has gotten bigger, and it really has gotten bigger to the level that like their brains can hold the geography, right? Like
tell me more. What does that mean?
Okay, so like the map in their brain has gotten bigger, right? So like,
you mean like that they like understand the world around them and like They understand,
Yeah,
like,
so,
where
like
someone's house is or the things.
yeah, and, like, they can
Mhm.
contain it in their brain.
Yeah.
So and they'll tell me, like so we'll be driving home, and they'll be like, "Oh, that street is where so and so lives, and that street is where so and so lives," and I used to not know how to get home from there, but now I
Yeah.
know how to do it, you know? And
Mhm.
so yeah, so I think for my kids, it used to be like, "Okay, these are the 3 streets that you can walk to and from, and, you know, you can cross this one, but you really can't go past that." And I think I'm a little bit loose about I think, like, in comparison to a lot of people, about, like, feeling like I need to know where they are all the time. What about you? Do you feel like where do you stand on that risk kind of tolerance? Do you know?
Yeah. I think I'm pretty, I lean like you do, pretty open. I think, like, very similar of when we've almost always lived right next to a park, and I do that, like,
Yeah.
super intentionally because I very much, as a kid, valued that freedom and feeling like I could explore the whole entire world, even though, like,
Mhm.
looking back, it was, like, 3 or 4 streets, right?
Mhm.
And so did my husband, like, he grew up in the mountains in, like, a very, very small community with lots of nature, and so lots of roaming, and so, like, we both very much valued that idea that, like, we want our kids to build worlds in their head, so, like, Bridge
Yeah.
Garabithia, right? We wanted to build worlds without us, and so, anyways, we were really intentional of always living next to a park, and so from the time that my kids were in school, like, kinder kinder and up, I would say you could go to the park, and, like, by right next to the park, I mean literally right next to the park, but out our back door, we could see the park, and so I would, like, sit up in the kitchen, but I could always keep an eye on them as they were littler, and then we've gotten bigger, and so, like, now I have a 14, 12, and 10-year-old, and they walk to 7-Eleven, which is right down the street from us,
Mhm.
and then they walk to the grocery store, which is
Mhm.
also a ways away. The
Mhm.
oldest, he'll run to grandparents' house, which is a mile down the road across a pretty busy road, but, like, for me, I think it's important to have those pieces, and I think it's, like, they've also earned not just like you said, of, like, they understand the world, but they've earned my trust, and, like, I've seen them be able to do things successfully, and I've given them some opportunities so that I know that if they're going to Tom Thumb or 7-Eleven, they're not acting a fool in the store. I'm just being and the grocer at the 7-Eleven, he knows me, and so anytime I walk in and I check on my kids, and I'm like, "Hey, have they been good?" And he knows, and he says, "I will tell you if they're not," right? And because, like,
Yeah.
I trust that they're gonna be good, and I think that's the other piece, right, Katie? Is like, I have faces. I may not know his name, and he doesn't know my name, but he knows who I am, and he knows who my kids are, so that
Mhm.
I trust, like, if I walk in there and my kids have acted a fool, that I believe he will tell me, and I think
Yeah.
and I would definitely do something about it. But I think that's the thing. It's like there's this small level of connection and community that also makes me feel comfortable
Mhm.
saying, like, "Yep, go do the world." And I think that was a big
Mhm.
part of, like, when I was a kid, of why my parents felt like we could go see the world, because I know that I got tattled on from neighbors that, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, and so I think there was a piece of that existed before of when I was being a stink or someone in the neighborhood was being a stink, they called my mom and told her
Mhm.
often before I could even get home.
Yeah, right,
And so,
exactly.
like, I think that's a big piece that is different for our kids or, like, for me as a parent. Well, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I think that's true, but I think you're doing some things that a lot of us don't either take the time to do or something like that, right? So, like, my kids will run to like, from their dad's house on the same, like, city block is
Mhm.
Kroger, and so they can run to Kroger because it's literally on the same city block. I don't have a big grocery store on my same city block, but we have a convenience store and there's a couple of restaurants and stuff like that. And so they could do that.
Mhm.
And I would feel totally comfortable with them doing that. I think that it takes the time and the effort of going in and like having the moments of these are my kids. They may be in here sometimes. You're going to have to tell me if they're not good. But then also, I send my kids in pretty regularly to the store by themselves with my debit card.
Mhm.
to buy whatever it is that we need, right? Like, hey, we need some milk. Will you run in? So that they're building those skills of
Yeah.
like going in, find the thing, go through the checkout by yourself. And the first couple times, right, they're nervous.
Mm-hmm.
But the intent is for them to do a thing that makes them nervous. They do it well. And then they get lots of encouragement and praise when they get in the car. Because what I want for them, right, in addition to this experience of being able to like build a world of exploration, is also to build the confidence that while I'm out here, I can do things, like I can
Yeah.
accomplish things,
Yeah.
things that are big and scary, and I can navigate a thing.
Yes.
So if I think about like things that I learned from being out running around, in the neighborhood when
Mm-hmm.
I was a kid, right? So like you learn how to navigate social situations with friends without having constant adult intervention, which I think
Yeah.
is a thing that we don't allow our kids to do all the time anymore.
Yeah.
So I think what I mean by that is if our kids are always contained within our little suburban properties and their friends are at our house and they're not out wandering, right?
Mm-hmm.
And things come up between them and their friends or them and their siblings, and we're always there to run interference.
Oh, yeah.
We're not like allowing them the situation of having to navigate it and deal with the fallout on their own,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
which I think does kind of a disservice because it's hard. It's really challenging not to step in as a
Yeah,
parent,
I agree.
you know?
I agree. And I think I had this reflection this weekend as my kiddos are getting more and more connected to the community that we're in because we make them go outside for a certain amount of time. And I've noticed like if kids are outside, more kids will come. It's funny how that happens. So we like force our
Mhm.
kids out. But I was just thinking of like, so I walked outside yesterday and there's like probably 15 boys playing tackle football, right? From the ages
Nice.
of like third grade to eighth grade.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so I, like, had this moment where I was like, "Do I need to go help them? Do I need to step in?"
Oh my
Because
gosh.
in my head, like, I had this moment of, like, Lord of the Flies, right? Like, it's gonna turn into mayhem,
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's
but I
what they want. They
didn't.
want a
That's what they want.
40-year-old mom
Yeah,
stepping in.
I did it. I did it. I, like, sat there for a moment. I, like, just called my kid over because I was going out there for a reason anyways before I realized they were 15, and I was like, "How's it going?" They're like, "Oh, it's good. It's fine. We got this." And so I just, like, walked away, and they did. They came back, my 2 and a bunch of their friends came up back and drank all the Gatorades from the fridge and ate some popsicles, and they had fun. But I do think
Good.
there is that piece of all of us that is like, "Oh my god. Is someone's gonna break the rope? Something's gonna happen. Someone's gonna get destroyed," right?
Mhm.
And I think for the most part, they don't. If we trust them and help, like, just give them the opportunity, a lot of them, they can do it better than we think they can often.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
So, why do you think that there's been a shift, right? So we have how it used to be in this it was kind of more free.
Yeah.
And then now there's kind of this desire to always know where our kids are and what they're doing and what they're getting into and if they're being appropriate. And what do you think that's about? Like, why do you think that has happened?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, Katie, I love the research. And so I think there's been a ton of research on this. And now I think there's like two folds of it. Is one piece is that we've shifted how our communities are even set up. And so we used to be in small, tight knit communities and like literally the grocer and the bank and all the things were like really close. So we had to know each other. We were really engaged. And now we're in suburban worlds. So we're just spread out more. And then the research also indicates like, in the 80s and 90s, there was a huge increase in awareness around kidnappings and child abuse and things like that, which are great. And I think that it should definitely be aware of. However, a lot of the messages, like downriver, it became like this world is scary and it's too scary and it's not safe for our kiddos. And so I think that shifted to being much more aware and in our small family units to peace. And so I think that's what the big research says. I'll say like on a personal level, I was a little bit wild as a middle schooler. And so I think part of me is like, I don't want them to do the things I did. Like, so part of me is like,
Mhm.
I'm always fighting that internal battle of like, I don't want them to be crazy like I was crazy. And so, like, do they need that extra supervision? But I think those are the big pieces. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you about people being more connected in the community. Everybody knows your kids. There's a higher level of accountability then than there is now. I think it was more acceptable to correct other people's kids than it is
Yeah.
now. I think, frankly, I would love it if other people would correct my kids when they're out of line. I think that when we have the tools now, especially to have a general concept of where our kids are at any given time, it makes me feel great because I can look on a map on my phone at any point and
Hmm.
see where my kids are. And so it gives me this feeling like I can know where they are and they can feel the freedom to kind of like roam the planet. And I say
Hmm.
planet in a very silly, like a hyperbolic way, because it's like the neighborhood,
Yeah.
or run up to the convenience store to get a Swedish fish. But I think you know, if we look at the impacts of it, of like trying to keep their world tighter, my daughter and her best friend love to go to the park, right? We were just talking about
Hmm.
the park, and they love to go to the park and they love to stay until right when the sun sets. And so it's still light out by the time they get back, but
Yeah.
they know before they leave, they look at what is the time of sunset so that they can be back before it gets dark because they get nervous when it's dark anyway.
Yeah.
And it is their most favorite thing to do. And I asked them what they're doing. They're like looking for moss and they're like jacking around on the playground and trying to climb trees and they're just being outside the house. It just like it
Yeah.
makes me so happy. But I think if we try to contain them to our property because it makes us feel better, it makes us feel less anxious. It makes us feel like they're safer. I think we're taking away a really big opportunity for them to have this exploratory experience about their world, and it increases their anxiety because what we're teaching them is that the world is not safe.
Okay. So, like, hey, break that down again because I do think that's a giant piece. So, tell me more. Okay. You say, like, if we're saying just this space so we can keep you safe, but that actually
Mhm.
increases their anxiety. Like, yeah, dive into that a little bit more for me.
Yeah. So I think if what we're doing is we're saying, "No, I want you to stay here because then I know you're safe," right? So then if we walk that message out, think about what the impact of that message is. I want you here because then I know you're safe. Then what that means then is the flip side of that message is the rest of the world is not safe, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so and while you and I, and as grown adults, can process that message
Yeah.
and put it in its place, which means, the rest of the world outside of our house, like you have to be kind of aware of your surroundings, right? But
Yeah.
kids also need to be able to feel safe in their skin and like they can navigate the world. And so if you live in a place where they are able to leave the house, they know to stay on the sidewalk instead of walk in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
They know not to run out in front of cars. They know which people in the neighborhood to be chatting with. They know where they can throw a ball and not accidentally into somebody's window, right? Like they have general concepts of safety and appropriateness, which you are building with them from age 4, 5, 6,
Hmm.
because you have been out with them. I mean, I think
Yeah.
there's a concept here that we kind of jumped
Skipped
over.
over. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, which is like, and I think that's one of the things that perhaps in you living near a park, right? They build those skills within the setting of a park.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so then when they get a little bit older, they can like filter out into the neighborhood kind of at large, right?
Yes.
And so then if your message then becomes, right, instead of I want you here because it's safe here, it is be careful, have fun. And
Hmm.
they know what be careful means. Like it's kind of a catch all for these neighborhood rules
Yeah.
because my rules out in the neighborhood were like, don't go into people's backyards.
Mhm.
You can be like 2 feet off the sidewalk into somebody's front yard, but be thoughtful. Don't jack that up too much, right? Because
Yeah.
people might get mad.
Mhm.
There were cut throughs between people's, like if you could
Houses,
dart
yeah.
real fast,
Yep. I know
go
exactly what you're talking about.
between the people's houses,
Mhm.
and you knew, which people didn't like you being in their grass and which people didn't care, and
Yes.
how to navigate all of those things, and how many hours was probably too many hours before you check in, and when you were going to get fussed at. But
And those are all skills
yeah.
that our kiddos learn that help translate in different ways too, I think. That's the thing that we
Hmm.
overlook sometimes in that, right?
Yeah.
Those are all giant, like, self-managing skills that our
Yes.
kids need to succeed in the classroom and at work eventually, right? Of
Hmm.
learning how to, like, self-manage and know
Hmm.
these invisible rules and these invisible boundaries in a lot of ways that I do think you learn. And I think a part of that's like you said, Katie, we learn because it's not always our parent teaching us, right? Like, I can totally
Yes.
remember running through Mr. Randy's lawn, and his lawn won every year lawn of the year and getting screamed at. And let me tell you,
Yep.
first and last time I ever ran through his lawn.
Yep.
But he taught me that lesson when my mom had said it to me hundred of times, but it didn't
Yep.
matter. But like, so I think that's the big piece too,
Hmm.
of like helping. And I think, like you're saying, this empowers our kids if we can build this level of trust and exploration. It teaches them that we trust them, and it teaches them how to appropriately trust the world around them. I think both of us are not saying in any way, and we hope you don't hear it like that, like, just send your kids out, run around rampant. Like, we have to continue to teach them and guide them through these things. And
Hmm.
it can be such a benefit and support for them.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah,
So, Katie, you
absolutely.
mentioned a couple times, like, there's some things that you use so you can see where your kids are. What are some of
Hmm.
the like recommendations, things that you use to make sure you know where they're at that you feel like are
Yeah.
age appropriate?
So we obviously don't get any benefit for saying this, but I am a big fan of the Apple like suite of products because I on my phone can see at any point where my kids are if they either have their phones on them or Apple Watches,
Mm-hmm.
because we're all connected. And so I just go on the like Find My app
Yeah.
and can see where they are
Mm-hmm.
and can get in touch with them. So I can either call them or text them, and then they have to get back in touch with me right away. And
Yeah.
so that's my method. I know that people have other smartwatches or like other phones have the same capability. And we can get into this another time, but you can really like lock down the Apple Watches also for like content management. But just for the sake of tracking and just seeing where they are, I really enjoy using the Apple products for that.
Yeah.
What else do you know about?
I know there's like a Gab watch, which is for younger kiddos, so like early elementary and such. And I think you can control who. It's only like a limited number of people in contacts, and it only does texting and calls, but it also has the capability of where are you, right?
Mm.
And then a Gizmo watch too. So I know both of those. I've heard good things about those for the pieces. To have I think in my house, I do what I call spot checks. So, like, if you tell me you're at the park and I walk outside and you're not at the park and I call your name, like, you're in the house the rest of the day. So, I think also you can build things of like, you have to be where you say you're going to be and build that trust too.
Mhm.
Because I don't have all of those, we don't have those gizmos in my house.
Mhm.
And so we just do a little bit of like, and that started small, right? Like, you can only be where you say you're going to be. And I will call your phone. If you're not, then you're coming home.
Yeah.
And so I think you can also build some of that too
Yeah,
for your kids.
if you don't wanna deal with all the tech.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
for
sure.
sure.
Yep. Yeah, that makes a
Cool.
lot of sense. All right, y'all. Well, we hope that this was helpful, and
We hope today you get at least one real laugh, one real hug, and one moment to breathe. Bye, guys.
bye.
Our music is by Stephen Bedall. If you're loving these conversations, we'd be so grateful if you followed the podcast, left a review, or shared this episode with a friend. That's how we grow this little front porch community. And remember, the days are long,
but the years are short. While we often talk about mental health, this should not be used as a substitute for mental health treatment. If you or your child are struggling, please reach out to a local provider.